Okay, everybody, and welcome to the Friday morning warm up. Still going strong at 120. And let me just mute you all before I go any further. Okay, right, now all muted. Yes, we're going to be looking at the diminished scale today. It's the particular one we're looking at is the whole tone, half tone scale, and I'll explain what that means later. There is another one called the half tone, whole tone scale, but we're not looking at that one today. So we'll talk about that later. We'll get started though with a little bit of clapping first of all. And I see Andrew's nicely wrapped up. Good. And right, I'm just going to put on the screen the clapping pattern. It's one we've done a few times before. I'm not saying therefore you will know it, but it's the Oya Como Va break, 4-bar break. And the reason it's up there on the screen is because we're playing this tune, Oya Como Va, at the jam session Freddie Freeloader on Sunday, 2 o'clock, Black Bull, Chelmsford, all welcome. And in this song, between each of the sections in the tune, everybody, including all the instrumentalists, all the frontliners, the drummers, the percussionists, everybody plays this 4-bar break, claps it or bangs out on a percussion instrument. So it's definitely worth knowing. And Oye Como Va does come up in jam sessions occasionally. So let me just get the the metronome going, and then just for a minute we will clap that rhythm. If you're not familiar with it, just wait till I've done it a couple of times, then follow me. Here we go. After 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. And again. One, two, three, and 4, and 1. One. One. Last time. Okay, there we go. Apologies, I did falter a couple of times during that, but I think I kept the basic 4-bar pattern going. I was actually thinking of that original music, original sound thing, and I know a couple of times in the past, Chris has piped up and said, "Oh, your sound is disappearing when you're clapping," and that's because I didn't have that showing on. So and it's how you hear it, not how I hear it. So there you go. Make sure it does say on for musicians at the top. Okay, moving on now, and if you'd like to get your instruments ready. We will play the note concert G, so A or E for the B flat and E flat instruments. Concert G, just for a minute, just to get them. Oh, here we go. Bit out of tune. Okay, and actually, just apologies. Just need to check my tuning. It doesn't sound quite right on the bottom. Right. Good-o. Yes, now the chromatic scale. We're still playing the chromatic scale, and we're starting on concert G, and so let's just do that for a minute. So concert G, so starting on A for the B flat instruments, or E for the altos. Here we go. We're going to just slow it down from that previous speed. Here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Down again. Let's do that again. 2, 3, 4. Right, a little bit faster, and don't forget to concentrate on getting a consistent tone and decide what that tone is going to be. Don't let your instrument just be that tone. Think how you want to make it sound, and then see if you can keep it consistent for the whole octave up and down again. So the note's consistent in terms of tone, length of note, volume or dynamics, and so on. So any parameter you can think of, go for consistency. Unless you're going deliberately for varying it. But anyway, go for consistency. Here we go, a bit faster. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. A little bit faster. Of course, it doesn't have to be long legato as I'm playing it. You can play it, or full length notes. You could go for staccato. So if you want to have a go at doing staccato and getting a good clean staccato sound, let's do that a bit faster. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, bit faster. One more. Let's just do one more quick one. Any style you like. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, there we go. The chromatic scale. Good-o. Right, let's move on to the diminished scale. We have done this before, of course, as you probably remember, but I'm not expecting you to remember everything we did last time, but I do like to add in a little bit more information each time we repeat a particular topic. So what I'm going to do this time, I'm just going to put a little bit of an explanation of the diminished scale. I've sort of shown it on the top line of the exercise sheet there. But just to give it a little bit of a background so you can sort of work out your own diminished scales. Let me just find the couldn't find it last time. The device which allows me to write on the screen. Diddly-doo-doo-doo. No, it's not there. Maybe I'll just stop that share. Oh, hello everyone. Whiteboards, there we go. I've got to unshare. Okay, so as you probably know, all scales have a formula, and I'll just show you what it is for a major scale. This thing, where you say, I hope you can see that, tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. And not doing very well at the moment. I can't find the thing to stretch that out. Anyway, we'll have to leave it like that. That's the formula which tells you that it goes up in from the first note of a major scale, from the first note up a tone to the next note, up a tone to the next note after that, then a semitone, and then tone, 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 semitone. So that's a little bit of a... If you're not familiar with that, it's something to perhaps look up and find out about. Because the subject today is the diminished scale, and the formula for that is a bit different. Now we're looking particularly at what's called the whole tone half tone scale. So if you start on a G, for example, it then goes up a tone, but then it goes up a semitone, and then it goes up a tone, then it goes up a semitone, then a tone, then a semitone, then a tone, then a semitone. That's probably too many. So if you were to put notes to that, and we started on G, a tone up from there is A, a tone up from there is B flat, well, let's put A sharp. A semitone rather, so that's a tone then a semitone. The next one is up a tone, so that will go to B sharp, well, let's call that C. Then we're up a semitone, C sharp. Then we're up a tone, D sharp. Then we're up a semitone, E. So it's alternating between tones and semitones. Then we're up a tone, F sharp, and then we're finally back to G. So you get this rather unusual scale. It's actually got 8 notes in it, sometimes called an octatonic scale, simply because it's got 8 notes in it, nothing more than that. 8 tones, octatonic. And as I say, it's called sometimes called the whole half or whole tone, half tone scale, because there is also a half whole scale, and it's simply the other way round. So it would go G, G sharp, A sharp, yeah, starting with a semitone. But we're looking at the whole tone, half tone scale today. Okay, well that's just where it's come from. And I've just given you an idea of one of the other names that's used. So let's go and look at the actual scale itself. So I'm going to put the exercise sheet back on top, and we're going to play that scale there right across the top of the page, 4 bars, and this is the whole tone, half tone scale. What we're going to do then is look at the chords which come from that scale. That's on the next line. So let's just play that top line first of all the way through. Now I've not put a key signature on this because it's not really in a key, a particular key. And as you can see, there are lots of accidentals anyway, so you'll be forever correcting the accidentals. So it's just written just with a load of sharps where necessary. Here we go. 1, sorry, start again. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. And down again. Oh, and because of the length of the phrase, I've left the last note off. So can you just add the starting note on the end of these examples? Otherwise it feels a bit unended. Let's do that again. I don't think you can hear it going up in a tone, then a semitone, then a tone, then a semitone. Down, down, down. Yeah, it's a symmetrical pattern. That's another name for this scale, actually, a symmetrical scale. It's an artificial scale as well. It's not man-made. It doesn't come out of nature like the other scales. Here we go. Do that again. 1, 2, 3, 4. And first note again. One more time. 2, 3, 4. Back to the root note on the end. So there we go. That's the sound of it. Fragments of it are used in melodies, but you won't find a song written using the diminished scale. It'll just sound too odd. In fact, it will sound artificial because it's an artificial scale. So, but it's used by people improvising quite a bit over certain chords. And now one of the interesting things about it, and I don't want to talk for half an hour about this, but it's a very unstable sound, and I'll explain why when we come to the next bit. Unstable means, in music, it means it needs to resolve. It needs to go to a nice place. Otherwise everyone's left feeling very tense and agitated. And the diminished scale is the most tense scale of all, probably, apart from some very weird ones which nobody plays. So what we're going to do now is look at the what chord comes from that scale. Now, generally speaking, when we've got a scale and we're trying to work out what chords come from it, what part of the family, we start on the root note, we then go to the third of the scale, then to the fifth of the scale, and if you want the seventh chord as well, you go to the seventh of the scale. So if you look on that top line, well, I'm looking at the concert version. You've got the G, then the A sharp or B flat, then the C sharp or D flat, and then the E. So they are the 1, the 3, the 5 and the 7, the first, the third, the fifth and the seventh, and that's what makes your seventh chord. Now, because it's a diminished scale, what you get is what's called the diminished seventh chord. So this is the scale that the diminished seventh comes from. So we're on to the second line now, and we're going to play those first two bars, which is the diminished seventh in root position. So it's the first, the third, the fifth and the seventh, up to the octave and then back down again. This is a little bit more familiar. It's used a little bit more in music than the scale itself, actually. So let's just play that after 4. We're just first two bars of the second line. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, let's do that again. 2, 3, 4. One more time. 1, 2, 3, 4. You may notice, or you may already know, that the interval between each of those notes is a minor third. And this is very peculiar to the diminished seventh. So every jump from one note to the next is a minor third, all the way up and all the way down. And that's part of its symmetry as well. So that's just something to kind of think about because when you're playing and you suddenly think, what's the next note? What's the next note? It's going to be a minor third up or down, whichever way you're going. Always a minor third. So that's the key to the arpeggios that we're talking about now. So that started on the root note. Right, the next two bars of the second line are starting on the third of your scale. So we're just going to go the third, the fifth, the seventh, the root, and up to the third, and then back down again. So it's like an inversion, really. But we're still going up in thirds, so it's not actually going to sound very different. So let's just do the bars 3 and 4 of the second line after 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And put that first note back on the end as well, just to finish it off. Let's do that again. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. One more time. 2, 3, 4. There you go. So the actual sound, as you can tell, is very similar, except it just simply starts on a higher note. So let's go on to the, let's just do the second and third inversions now. So we'll just play through those, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about this idea of it resolving somewhere. So, okay, we're on the third line now. First two bars. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Oops. Long note at the end there. And again, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, in all cases, just put that first note on the very end after we're finished. One more time for the second inversion. 2, 3, 4. So the second inversion is starting on the 5th, as it does in all inversions, if you know your inversions. Okay, we'll just do one more then, and this is the third inversion. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hope you're not all feeling too tense. All these unresolved arpeggios. And again, so we're on bar 11 now. Third inversion. 2, 3, 4. One more time. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and we're really just opening the door on the diminished chord here, because it does have an awful lot of interesting and mystical sort of possibilities, and how it can be used. And one of the interesting things about it, I find this interesting, you may or you may not, but unlike, well, let's just go back a step. In music, as you know, there are things called cadences, where there is a definite change of chord. That if you hear that chord, it's nice to hear that one, and that's what's called a perfect cadence. And the reason for that is because that first chord had what's called a tritone in it. Two of the notes in that first chord were 6 semitones, or 3 tones, tritone, apart, and they need to resolve. Oh, sorry, wrong way. There we go. So that's a tritone, and that's a resolve. The bottom one goes up a semitone, the top one comes down a semitone, and it sounds like a natural. And if you've got that in your chords, then you get this perfect resolution. Now, most chords don't have a tritone in it, so they don't resolve nicely to somewhere else. The dominant 7th chord does, like C7 and F7 and so on. They do have a tritone in it, so they do naturally resolve to a chord, a fourth away, fourth above. The diminished 7th chord has 4 tritones in it. This is one of the weird and wonderful things about it. There are 4 tritones. I won't go point them all out. You can get a bit of paper out and try and work them out if you like. There are 4 tritones in, the interval can be found in 4 different places in those 4 notes. It's quite something. And each of those tritones resolves to a different chord. So this chord, once played, I'll just play a G diminished 7th chord, just you can hear the sound. Here we go. There we go. That's the sound of it. There are 4 tritones in there, so it can resolve 4 different ways. It can resolve to an A flat major. It can resolve to an F major. I'm not expecting you to remember all this, by the way, just demonstrating. It can resolve to a D major. Can you tell just by listening that they all sound like natural perfect resolutions, but they're all different chords? And it can resolve to one more, which I've temporarily forgotten. D. That one, B major. Isn't that amazing that this one chord has 4 natural resolutions, perfect cadences away from it? So that's why it does get used in a lot of music, because it's a perfect chord to include when you want to resolve it. Right, that's just a little bit of blurb about that. If you want to watch a YouTube video and listen to me saying that again, see if it makes more sense the second time, please do. Okay, let's do exercise pattern number 1. And this is just a little pattern which works its way up the scale, actually using one of those patterns we used last week. 1, 2, 3, 1, I think it is. Anyway, let's just play it. So we're on exercise pattern number 1, after 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think we got there eventually. Well, I did. Hope you did. And again, 1, 2, 3, 4. And one more time, exercise pattern number 1, 2, 3, 4. You will possibly hear that in some solos by fast and furious jazz musicians working their way up through the scale, and they would play that on a chord, on a dominant 7th chord, which is a semitone below the starting point, the root note. So that started on concert G, so if it was an F sharp 7 chord, they would play that. But that's a subject for another session. Okay, let's do exercise pattern number 2. This is a descending one. And I almost said it's coming down, but it's a descending one coming down. It's a descending pattern based on that scale. By the way, we're working on the scale at the moment. Sorry, the previous one was working on that scale, the diminished scale. This one is working on the arpeggios. It's working its way around the arpeggios, but it's using notes from the scale, of course. Exercise pattern number 2. Let's just play it. 4 bars after 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now that actually sounded a bit prettier than the first one. 2, 3, 4. Could almost sing that one. One more time, exercise pattern number 2, 2, 3, 4. Okay, you will find this in classical music as well as jazz music, although it does seem to be popular with a certain style of improvising in jazz, but certainly a lot of Bach's music has diminished scales and arpeggios in that music, and other classical music since then. So, okay, we're just going to finish off this part of the session with an example I mentioned once before. It's about the only example I can find of this scale being used, the whole tone, half tone scale being used in a popular music. And, all music is popular to a certain degree, but in rock music. And it's the intro to Radiohead's song Just, when the guitarist comes in and plays this. Although I've put it into the key that we're playing in, so it'll be different to the record. But if you listen to the record Just by Radiohead, you can perhaps work out what key they're playing it in. So let's just play the bottom line now, the excerpt from Just by Radiohead. This will be a bit slower than they play as well. After 4. This right, starts on a dotted, so the rhythm's going to be down. Yeah, it's going to gradually work its way up. So that's kind of the rhythm. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, some of you may recognize it. Let's do that again. 1, 2, 3, 4. One more time. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, there we have it. That's a little session there on the diminished scale and the diminished chord, the diminished seventh chord, which comes from that scale, and one or two of its uses, and the fact that it needs resolving. So it's you will never. If anyone finds a song that ends on that chord, please let me know. Very unlikely. Okay, let's finish off then with a little bit of strumming. And what I've written out is a chord sequence, and the third and fourth bar has a diminished chord in it. And if you want to practice that scale over that particular 2 bars, the third and fourth bar, then please do. I'll put it in the same key as what we're doing. Otherwise, you can just get away with, shall I say, the key of the actual piece. So it's going to be concert A. So B or F sharp for B flat and E flat instruments. So that first chord is the key of this. So it's in a slightly different key as to well, as I said, G diminished 7th is not in a particular key. Anyway, here we go. So just going to strum those chords for a minute, and then we'll be finished. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now the diminished chords, and that should be E7. That last chord's not right. Diminished. E7. Last time, all the way around. Here we go. Diminished chord coming up. Here we go. And I've just thought there is a prominent use of the diminished chord in My Sweet Lord by George Harrison. And if anyone would like to listen to that on YouTube or somewhere and tell me at what point, just by listening, at what point does that chord start, how many seconds, minutes and seconds, there you go. I haven't got a bar of chocolate for you, but yeah, something to listen for. My Sweet Lord by George Harrison. It's got the diminished chord in it. There aren't many pop songs. Okay, everybody, that's it. That's it on the diminished chord for a few months. And oh, we've lost somebody. That must be Julie. Right. Nice to see you all. And I think I'm in next week. I think it's the week after I'm not. So yes, I'll see you next week, next Friday. That'd be great.
Bye, Dave. Bye, Chris. Bye, everybody.
Bye,
Bye,
David.
Robin.
Bye,
Thanks,
Robin.
Dave.